A young boy named Ivan Olsen, with his newfound powers of super strength, wants to take revenge with everyone that has ever wronged him. He throws his father up a tree and demands the old man to climb higher and higher. Mr. Olsen begs his son, pointing out that he is afraid of heights. But Ivan is so enraged that he doesn't want to hear any excuse, and is hell-bent on punishing his father. This all started several days ago in a quaint town where Ivan Olsen lives with his domineering father. Ivan's mother left them for a Greek butcher, and ever since the father and son have shared a contentious relationship. Dad wants his son to wake up early, exercise, and become a specimen of a man like Tarzan. On the other hand, young Ivan barely even wants to go to school. He has no choice, however, and somehow drags himself to school on a daily basis. One morning on his way, he befriends a crow who also seems to take a liking to Ivan. The bird guides the young boy to a nearby dumpster where someone has thrown a new garden rake. Ivan sees this and immediately tries to fetch the tool for some reason. His attempts are interrupted by Lotta, a beautiful girl who reads in the same class as him. Turns out, she is the daughter of their school's principal, who is also quite domineering in his own way. He has meticulously planned his daughter's life and forces her to excel in everything, from tennis to violin to advanced mathematics. For this reason, Lotta has a soft spot for Ivan, who shares a similar family environment. Shortly afterwards, the two friends reach school only to be greeted by a group of bullies. The leader of this annoying gang is Kim, the daughter of the local butcher. She is a big, burly girl who towers over anyone in the school. They stop Ivan from entering but allow Lotta to go in since she is the principal's daughter. Lotta does try to raise her voice to save Ivan, but Big Kim scares her away. After they are left alone, Kim and two of her henchmen carry Ivan to the bathroom. They dunk the poor boy in the sink and open the tap, so that it looks like Ivan peed his pants. Kim also teases him for having noodle arms, before chucking him into the nearby bathroom. Disappointed, Ivan skips classes and goes straight back to his home. Things continue to take a downturn for him as he sees his father throwing out several of his valued possessions. It turns out that Mr. Olsen has quit his job to turn into a full-time life coach. He has been emptying their house so as to make room for his new office. However, as Ivan is walking to his room, Mr. Olsen notices that his boots are soaking wet. He immediately guesses that his son has been bullied in school once more. Dad is disappointed and tells Ivan that he must be a real man, someone who can beat up any opponent. Mr. Olsen shares the story from his younger days when he was hassled by the local butcher. He says that he beat the bully so bad that the latter never bothered him again. It is obvious that Mr. Olsen is extremely disappointed at his son for being such a coward. However, once he is alone in his room, we get to see a different side of Ivan's personality. He grabs the rake he had picked up earlier from the dumpster, then sneaks out of his room using a makeshift ladder. The young boy then heads to a nearby abandoned factory. There, he has created a world for his own. Tools no longer in use are dressed to resemble humans. The whole space is colored and full of art, making it look like a home. Ivan spends a lot of his time here, pretending that the tools are his friends. Unbeknownst to him, Lotta, who had noticed him walking to the factory earlier, is watching all of this. She is very amused and impressed by his sense of creativity. The following day at school, the principal enters Ivan's class with an important announcement. He reveals that they are establishing an elite class, a different section for students who are academically gifted. He wants the kids in this class to do a reading test so that he can filter such students out. The teacher then points at Ivan and asks him to read the first chapter of his English book. Unfortunately, this is when we get to know that poor Ivan suffers from dyslexia. The letters in the book appear to him as though they are dancing, and he can barely read a single sentence. The principal is disgusted and on his way out, tells the teacher to put Ivan in a special tuition class. When this news reaches Mr. Olsen later that day, he gets extremely irate. He yells out, pointing out that his son has never done anything to make him proud, not even once. Poor Ivan tries to deflect the topic by asking Mr. Olsen how his new job as life coach is going. The latter dismissively replies that things are good, and he will soon have a huge line of clients. Suddenly, this gives Mr. Olsen an idea, and he asks his good-for-nothing son to come with him. Shortly afterwards, the father and son are standing near the town's center, advertising Mr. Olsen's coaching business. He promises to change anyone's life just for the mere price of $100. He seems to be extremely excited until his mood is disrupted by the arrival of a huge trailer. A woman, who claims to be a witch, soon disembarks from the trailer. Turns out she has her own business idea and quickly sets up shop right alongside Mr. Olsen's. For the mere price of $50, she claims to change people's lives through miracles. Mr. Olson is obviously skeptical about it, but the witch soon starts working her magic. She takes people with various problems inside her carriage and cures them of their disabilities. Upon seeing this, Mr. Olson comes up with an idea to boost his own business. He plans to coach his son into an all-round champion. Once he is successful in doing so, he will surely have a huge line of clients. For the first step of this plan, Mr. Olson takes his son to the local gym. He wants his kid to be big and physically strong. He even shares a story from his younger days, claiming that he once lifted a total of 600 kilograms. Mr. Olson then pushes his son inside the gym, but it is obvious that the latter doesn't actually want to be there. Nonetheless, once he is inside, Ivan meets with the trainer and says that he wants to be strong. Lotta and one of their classmates, Karsten, are also present in the gym. The latter watches in amusement as the trainer takes Ivan through the warm-up exercises. Ivan is made to do several jumping jacks, pull-ups, and sit-ups in a short burst of time. It comes as no surprise that the boy cannot do any exercise properly. Disappointed, the trainer then kicks him out, saying that the gym is not for weaklings. Outside, Lotta meets up with Ivan and tells him not to lose hope. She also asks if he has received a letter recently, but the latter is way too discouraged at the moment to notice anything. It is, however, very obvious that Lonnie is quite infatuated towards Ivan. Sometime later, Ivan reaches his home, but even before he can enter in, Mr. Olson asks if he has gotten stronger. The boy lies and says he has, finally giving his father something to be happy about. Thinking that his plan to coach his son into a winner is working, Mr. Olson quickly goes on to the next step of his coaching. He tells Ivan to learn how to ride a bike, essentially forcing the kid into a cycle that is way too big for him. Things get even worse for the young boy, as Kim suddenly shows up on the spot. He barely gets on the cycle when Kim kicks it from behind, completely unprovoked. As a result of this, poor Ivan zooms down the town and is unable to control his cycle. He eventually lands up inside a pond, and two fishermen pitifully rescue him. Following this debacle, Ivan returns to his safe place, the abandoned factory where he has created his own world. He sits down solemnly, completely disheartened by his lack of skills. His dark mood is suddenly uplifted when he finds an envelope from Lotta lying on a chair nearby. The kid doesn't open it right away, but it is obvious that it is a love letter. The following day, a much more optimistic Ivan accompanies his father to the market. He asks what it is like to have a girlfriend, but Mr. Olson once again starts to blow his own trumpet. The old man says he once used to have tens of girlfriends, as if he was a real man, strong and masculine. The duo then head to the butcher's shop as Mr. Olson thinks his son needs protein. Upon entering the store, Mr. Olson keeps up his tough man act and begins to brag on the butcher too. The latter, however, whips out his notebook and says, Mr. Olson needs to pay up his previous dues first. The old man is about to get into trouble, but thankfully he gets rescued by two old ladies who are also in the shop. They ask the butcher to take pity on Mr. Olson, pointing out that his son looks extremely measly. The butcher thus gives Mr. Olson 2 big slices of steak. However, when the father and son duo cook the steak at home, they realize the butcher's foul play. The latter has given them bad pieces which are too tough and elasticy to even chew. Luckily for them, the bell rings, which gives both of them an excuse to abandon the bad steak. Mr. Olson quickly opens the door only to see Lotta with what appears to be a violin box in her hand. He assumes she is here for his coaching services, but the girl surprises him by saying that she simply came to meet Ivan. Immediately, Mr. Olson realizes that Lotta is his son's boyfriend, and happily tells them to chat in Ivan's room. He is proud that his son has a girlfriend, but his over-enthusiastic behavior soon becomes too much. He keeps on interrupting the two kids, and eventually Lotta leaves, feeling slightly irritated. Unfortunately for Ivan, the trouble is only beginning as Mr. Olson seems to have more grand plans for him. The very next day, Mr. Olson gathers the townsfolk in order to give them a live demonstration of his coaching. He believes that Ivan has gotten stronger, can ride a bicycle, and has a girlfriend, all because of his training. So he now wants to put it on a show and attract clients. Mr. Olson then asks his son to climb up a really high tree to demonstrate his physical prowess. He once again recounts a memory from his younger days when he could climb trees like Tarzan. Even protests, begging his father that he cannot climb up the tree. But his pleas fall on deaf ears and his father chucks him up to the lowest branch. With no other option, poor Ivan tries his best to climb the tree. His father's antics also attract a large crowd, including the butcher, his daughter Kim, Karsten, and Lotta. The latter tries her best to encourage Ivan to climb, and he initially seems to be doing good. However, once he reaches the upper ends of the tree, the branches begin to get thinner. One such branch snaps and Ivan eventually falls down with a sickening thud. Instead of picking up his son, Mr. Olsen loses his calm. He begins to berate Ivan in front of everyone, calling him good for nothing, cowards, and a jelly Tarzan. This last mocking nickname is picked up by Kim, who begins to taunt Ivan with it. After this public humiliation, Lotta tries to approach Ivan and lighten his mood. She also finally confesses her love and asks him to be her boyfriend. Ivan, however, is too distraught and frustrated by whatever happened earlier. He angrily walks away, leaving poor Lotta hanging without a reply. On the other hand, poor Ivan goes to the pond where a singular cloud begins to pour down incessant rain on him. This is when the crow, who Ivan had befriended several days ago, arrives at the spot. It sees the boy's sad condition and gestures him to follow. The bird eventually leads the young boy to the witch's caravan, which is currently parked in the middle of the woods. It is also revealed that the crow is actually the witch's pet. Following this, the eccentric woman sees Ivan and immediately recognizes him. She somehow knows he has gone through some tough times and sympathizes with him. In fact, the witch even offers to do a miracle for Ivan without any fee. The kid is delighted at this offer and says he wants to be the best at everything. The witch says she can do this, but being good at everything comes at a price. It can be done only for a day. Shortly afterwards, she takes out her bag of potions and boils up a concoction. She mixes everything, from the calmness of a cow to the agility of a car and the strength of an ox. However, she forgets to put in the Mayflower vial, which would allow Ivan to come back to his normal self after a day. Once the final potion is made, Ivan happily gulps it down. Colors pop out of him, and the young man immediately feels the change. He happily runs back home while the witch reminds him to make the most out of his day. The next morning, Ivan wakes up and immediately tests his powers by spitting on a roadside lamp. To his delight, he not only manages to hit the pole but also causes it to fall down. He is so delighted that he rushes downstairs and tells his father about his newfound ability. Mr. Olsen, who had been sleeping on the couch, can barely make out what his son is saying. But he is left speechless when Ivan easily picks the sofa, along with him. The kid then rushes to school, leaving his father utterly flabbergasted. At school, Ivan displays his newfound abilities by reading several books without hesitating for a second. Everyone, especially the smug Karsten, is left utterly speechless by this sudden change in him. During lunchtime, Ivan confidently approaches Lotta and tells her that he wants to be her boyfriend. She is ecstatic, but their moment of joy is soon cut short when Kim's henchmen appear on the spot. They try to corner Ivan, thinking he is a puny boy with no muscles. However, using his newfound powers, Ivan walks them down to the bathroom. He then takes revenge for all the bullying he has faced by dunking the two henchmen in the sink before yeeting them in a cubicle. After school, Ivan accompanies Lotta to her home, showcasing his gymnastic abilities throughout the way. She is impressed but asks if he can take her to the abandoned factory to show his hideout. Before the latter can answer, Kim arrives at the spot, and Ivan sees the chance to take his revenge. He immediately challenges her to a race, where he will ride a bicycle while Kim can use her scooter. The big bully gladly accepts the challenge and the two begin racing downhill towards the nearby lake. Despite several obstacles, Ivan easily manages to beat Kim in the race. He is so caught up in his victory that he doesn't realize he is gleefully celebrating Kim falling in the river. This irks Lotta, who thinks the boy she loved has become exactly like this bully's. She thus walks away from him without saying a word. By this time, the sun is almost about to set, so Ivan goes back to his home. His father is waiting for him and the old man has heard about his feats. Mr. Olsen is extremely proud of his son and immediately starts to make grand plans. Ivan, however, tried to tell him about the witch's miracle which will have washed away after sunset. To his utter shock, when Ivan flexes his biceps, they are still huge. It appears like he still has all his powers despite the sun having set. Thus, from the very next day, Mr. Olsen begins to parade his son like a trophy he has won. First, the father and son go to the latter's school and insult the principal's plans of an elite class, calling it beneath their level. Then, Mr. Olsen goes around town showcasing Ivan's insane strength and intellect. This brings him a lot of press and clients who line up to take his counseling classes. The Olsens end up making a lot of money and gaining nationwide popularity. One afternoon, Mr. Olsen takes his celebrity son to the butcher's shop only for a huge crowd to gather upon seeing them. The old man then arrogantly gives the butcher $10,000 and even says he will coach Kim to be as good as his son. The butcher doesn't take this kindly and threatens to beat up Mr. Olson. Fearing for his well-being, the latter asks his son to intervene, and Ivan reluctantly lifts up the butcher. As if this wasn't enough, Mr. Olson makes his son carry the butcher all the way to the local park. There, in front of a huge crowd, Mr. Olson orders Ivan to throw the butcher up the tree. The kid, however, remembers his own humiliation and refuses to do so to someone else. Ivan instead grabs Mr. Olson and yeets him up the tree. Years of abuse and frustration finally starts to pour out, and Ivan lashes out at his father. Eventually, Mr. Olson falls down the tree and Ivan snaps out of his anger. That night, the father and son have a heart-to-heart chat about everything that has happened. Mr. Olson reveals that he was never actually strong or had a lot of girlfriends. He was always a silly, goofy person, much like Ivan. The duo bond over their shared personalities and finally put all their differences aside. In fact, Ivan takes his father to the abandoned factory, and Mr. Olson is astonished by his son's creativity. Suddenly, the witch barges into the factory and grabs Ivan tightly. She has realized that she had forgotten to put the Mayflower vial in her miracle potion. She exclaims her relief in finding the boy, and reveals that Ivan will turn evil if he doesn't go back to normal quickly. Upon hearing this, the kid gulps down the Mayflower vial and immediately loses all his powers. Mr. Olson, however, is still proud of his son, even if he is a simple, common boy. The following day, Ivan goes to school and talks to Lotta. He apologizes to her and the duo get back together. They still get bullied by Kim, but at least they have each other now.